Well, hey, long time no see. It's Joseph, owner and creator and operator of the On30 Mosquito Creek Lumber Company, Swamp Log and Railroad. Well, it's been quite a number of months since I put out a fresh video, and I'm sorry about that. I apologize. We've just been hugely busy doing van renovations and going on very long van camping journeys this past spring and summer. We just got back from, I don't know how many states we hit. It was more than 6,000 miles and 5-6 weeks on the road, and it was exciting, but it's now winter here in the upper Midwest, and it's time to get doing some model railroading. So believe it or not, I'm getting back to working on the Mosquito Creek Lumber Company. Going to start from the end where the Blackwater Junction depot is, and I'm going to work my way all the way around the layout and work it all the way till I get to the very end of the bench work, where all the brand new track work and all that has yet to be put in, and the scenery and things like that. Speaking of scenery, let's get back to doing a little modeling here, and I'm going to show you how I do concrete slabs and road pavement around the Blackwater Junction depot. So join me over here and we'll show you how I do that. All right, let's first make some templates to cut out our slabs for the balsa wood that I use for the cement area. And here I'm tracing out where the inside rails are, and just using regular paper from the computer printer, and just using a pencil to mark where the rails are so I know where to cut. So I learned this technique from Boomer Diorama, who is kind of like my modeling mentor, and he's the guru of all things awesome when it comes to scenery and doing models. So here we go. We're tracing out around the scratch-built Blackwater Junction depot, which is in dire need of some repairs after the move and being in storage for a while. Doesn't look too bad. It just needs a little help. So here I've got another 8.5 by 11 piece of copier paper that I've traced out the outline of where the bay window is on the depot. And here I'm just using regular scissors and cutting out where I drew lines on the paper. And this will become my template for cutting out the balsa pieces that I'll use to represent concrete around the depot. It's so weird how we procrastinate and put off getting back into the train room. I don't know what goes through our brains, especially mine, where I just don't have the time to get started in doing a project. But once we make up our minds to not listen to our silly brain and get in there and start doing things, we can make a lot of progress on our model railroads, and that's for sure. So here I've got the two pieces of copier paper that I'm using as a template, just laying them back in there and making sure that everything fits well around the depot. And now I'm going to be putting another piece here to get another template to make a little additional baggage or freight platform across from the depot. So doing the same technique here, sketching out where the rails are to get the exact curvature of the rail, and then I'll cut that back out using scissors again, like I'm showing here. And once I had the curve cut, I just made another mark with my pencil where I wanted the platform to end. Snip, snip, and that's done. In hindsight, I think I should have left that little bump out on the concrete there on the platform. It kind of looks cool, but I cut it off. Making additions to things isn't that hard using the balsa. So here I have my 1/8 inch piece of balsa wood plank. The piece I'm using is 4 by 12 in length. And that's the good thing about balsa. It's very light and it cuts very easily, except on that one end. There seemed to be some hardwood in there or something. So here I've got a template for the back portion of the main platform at the depot, and I'm cutting the end off there flush with where the template is. Now let's fit it in there and see how good of a job I did on cutting, and it snaps right in there nice and snug, and that's good. So that'll be the main platform. In this area there's going to be a covered station roof that extends out from the main depot with some benches and things there. So, you know, and down in the south in the swamp, it rains a lot. So our passengers, what little we have, need a little shelter from the rain. Using a little bit of painter's tape to stick the template onto another piece of balsa wood, same thickness, 1/8 of an inch. Works pretty good for O scale in our On30 trains. And just marking it out again with the pencil, just following the line where I cut the paper template, and then I'll cut that back out using a nice sharp blade on my hobby knife. On the longer sections for the cuts, I like using a thick metal straight edge, or in this case a ruler, to help get that nice clean cut. And I'm just going to cut right through the tape here as I trim off this end. You can find these planks of balsa wood in various thicknesses. Like I said, the 1/8 inch works pretty good for O scale. I'm also going to be using some balsa on my HO scale layout, and I'm going to use 1/16 inch thick balsa to represent tarmac in a different area of the port that I have on the layout. You can get balsa at places like Michael's and Hobby Lobby, or of course on Amazon. They have, if you got a lot of it to do, they've got some bundles where you can get a number of sheets of balsa at a pretty decent price. So here's our piece all cut out and ready to fit on the layout next to the depot. Just fit that in around there and click it in on the rail. Behind the rail, I should say. And here I'm marking where the ties come, because what I'm going to do is on the bottom side of this slab, I'm going to sand out the material to make it more snug so it doesn't stick up over the rails. Kind of a little recessed groove that'll fit over the top of the ties. I'm just using some coarse sandpaper here. I can't remember what grit it is, on a piece of board, and using that line that I marked, just continue to sand it until I get it down by about half. Here it's you can kind of see where the indent is. Needs a little bit more work. It's still a little bit thick there, so I'll give that another few passes with the sandpaper, but you can see how thin it became compared to the regular thickness. Then we'll stick it back in there, and nice and level with the top of the rails. Getting a thumbs up. I did that with all the pieces of balsa, the large platform piece and these two smaller extension pieces. You can see there that I sanded them down, and it helps immensely with the fitment there, and how it's going to help your trains run across that area better. As per Boomer Diorama's suggestion, with balsa wood, you need to seal it so it doesn't become a sponge when you want to paint it and do other things. And he recommends a water-based polyurethane. And I picked up a quart, and this will probably last me forever. But I'm going to seal both sides and the edges with this polyurethane, and that'll help seal up all the pores in the balsa, because it's a very, very porous wood. It's not a hardwood. And do both sides, and that'll keep it from warping, and it'll keep it nice and flat when you install it on your layout. And here you do the edges, do all the surfaces, seal them up really good, and that gives you a really good surface to paint on as well. All right, time to do some gluing using some carpenter's glue. And you can see where I marked on the layout, the outline of where the station is, and the little bump out bay window for the station. And use that to work my carpenter's glue in onto the surface of the layout, which is painted insulation foam. Now, the other trick that Boomer Diorama uses is using some super glue on the plastic ties to help sink them in. And the one thing that's cool about using super glue and a piece of balsa that has the polyurethane on it, that the polyurethane really sticks when you combine that with the super glue. So they're adding some pressure on top to get it seated and get that super glue to bite. Give it a good pressing with a straight board, and then we'll weigh that down and keep it nice and flat until the carpenter glue dries. So if my wife wonders where her barbells or dumbbells are, they're being put to good use. on holding down some balsa wood on the layout. I don't have anything as cool as an old piece of prototype rail, but it does in a pinch. Now we're getting ready to glue down the large portion of the depot platform, and I'm going to mark the edges like I did on the other piece, just so I know when to stop the glue. Give it a good amount. Get it all squirted in there, and just brush it out nice and flat. Cover all the areas. Use carpenter's glue instead of just white glue or PVA because it is not susceptible to coming loose when it gets wet. Like white glue will loosen up when it has moisture. The carpenter's glue does not. Here we are putting some more super glue on. You can see the little groove cut out there for the ties. Slip that on top, push it up flush with the railhead, and then hold it down till the super glue gets a grab on it. And then tuck that back section in. And of course, here we go. Let's weight it down and let it dry. I don't know, but it reminds me of a 2-chime air horn from a diesel sitting there, the shape of those barbells. Now that the balsa is glued in place and good and dry, I chose to give the top sections of the balsa another coat of the water-based polyurethane. This is a crystal clear semi-gloss interior, and it has basically no odor at all, which is good when you're doing stuff inside the house. So give it a really good coat and let that soak in and dry, and then we'll go on to the next step. So everything is dry and nice and sealed. Here's the depot back in place, and yeah, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. And then on the freight end of the depot, there's the driveway portion there, the loading ramp, and a really cool O-scale truck ready to unload some cargo. I wanted to give the concrete platforms a little bit of texture so it looked like aged concrete, and I chose to use my old standby lightweight spackling compound, and I'm using a palette knife here to put a very thin layer over the polyurethane treated balsa wood. This application of the spackling compound helps get rid of the wood grain from the balsa and kind of give it a little more of a concrete aggregate look to it. I also ran a little bit of the spackling compound up on the ends of the platform. On this side is where the road is going to come up. I actually did sand down a little bevel on that right side there of the loading platform just to give it a little more smoother transition onto where the roadway will be. I'm just using a real cheapy plastic artist's palette knife. You can get these things at your local arts and crafts place or Walmart. Sometimes they'll have them in their arts and crafts section usually comes with 3 or 4 different blade types, and this one, being as flat as it is, works pretty good. Now we're working on the platforms at the opposite end of the depot. The spackling compound also helps hide the seams between the various pieces. I mean, it could look realistic to have a expansion joint there in the concrete, but I think I'll just seal it up here and make it one large pour. Just get a really good thin top coat. You don't want it to be too thick because then it'll be out of scale. But just a nice thin coating just to get rid of that wood grain and give it a little irregular texture like old concrete or asphalt would be. Using the spackle on the edges of the balsa strips to get rid of any wood-looking grain or cut marks, just to kind of give it more of a concrete finish, and filling in a couple little gaps there in the foam roadbed surface, and then just finish that off, and I think it's going to look pretty good. Once it's dry, you can choose to give it a very light sanding to take down some of the high spots if you want. The lightweight spackle has more of a flexible texture to it when it's dry, so it's not bad. Now it's time to bring that balsa wood to life, looking like concrete. And real world concrete to me isn't gray. It's a warm, kind of a grayish tan color. And I'm going to accomplish that by using some craft paint. Mixing it up to kind of a dark tan. Of course, that's not the finished product. We'll be putting some stains and aging and weathering on it, but this is a good base coat to give you that warm, aged, not going to see that, warm, aged look of concrete. I sprayed it with just a little bit of wet water in my spray bottle just to help the paint flow a little bit easier. Of course, under the lighting that's on the layout and the video camera, even though I tried to do a little color correction, it's coming across a lot greener in the video than it actually is in person. So just understand that it isn't super green to the naked eye. There, it's dry, it looks a little bit grayer. Now we have a very thin wash with a little bit of black and some brown in there, and just going to give it a real light wash of this color, which will help bring the detail out and make it look a lot more used and abused. Just a very thin coat of the paint. Once the base coat was dry. You can see the small platform in the foreground there has already been stained. And if you want some oil stains and things like that, you can just leave the thicker puddles of the stain there, and when it dries, it looks really cool. Again, you can use the higher end paints like Vallejo Air and those type, and thin those down. They work perfectly well, and so do the craft paints. They work good for this application too. All right, let's make some pavement. My technique for making pavement involves a sanded grout that you can find at your local flooring store. And a lot of times, like what I bought here, I got like a half a bag because they had a job and they didn't use it all, and they sold a half a bag for me at a discounted price. This is kind of a warm gray tile grout and a very thin, or I should say, a very light sand in it. It's very fine grit, so it works great for pavement. Just adding a little bit of water, and then it takes a while to get this to absorb the liquid, but so be patient when you're stirring it. Try to get a really good mixture there. There's kind of the consistency, kind of like pancake batter or really thin concrete when they're pumping it at a job site. So I'm using the same plastic palette knife that I did for spreading the spackling on the cement slabs. I'm just using this and spreading out this tile grout right onto my painted foam, and just smooth it out and bring it around. A little bit goes a long way. You can always build up layers if you want something to look a little bit thicker. And if the consistency is not thick enough for you, you can add another teaspoon or so of the sanded grout, mix that up, and that'll work for you. Here I'm blending in the end of the main platform because I'm kind of using it as a driveway, so taxi cabs and other vehicles can pull up onto the main platform there to load passengers or drop off packages and that type of thing on that side of the depot. Trying to smooth out some of the marks there. And there's a few places that could use a little extra of the grout, but I think for the most part it's looking pretty good. Here we're doing the same thing, adding a little bit of a ramp onto the secondary platform on the other side of the tracks from the depot, using the same sanded grout mixture. This is a little bit thicker, a little less water in there. You can see where it kind of gives you like potholes and a lot of like damage that has happened to the pavement. So it's very cool. It's a very cool effect, I think. It's a great material to work with. Well, here it is dry, and you see it has kind of a real faded asphalt look to it. And if you want, you can always come in there and give it some airbrush tones and things, which I think I probably will as the scenery in this area moves along. Here's the roadway to the loading ramp at the freight side of the depot. And here we kind of see the finished product. There's a lot more that has to be done around the depot to finish the scene, and some more painting and blending in. But for the most part, at this stage, I think I'm pretty pleased with how the balsa wood worked out. It looks great. It doesn't really look like balsa when you're looking at it on the layout, but it's a very easy material to cut and work with, and it's very stable once you seal it all with the polyurethane. No warping or anything. I didn't have any of those problems. So very happy using balsa wood sheets for representing concrete slabs, and I'm very happy with using the sanded tile grout to use as pavement in the model railroad. So just a quick overview look there. Coming up in the next video, I'm going to be showing you how to add some ballast and what I use to adhere the ballast, and we'll also be doing the background trees. I'll show you how I use photos to simulate the backdrop trees and foliage, how I blend that in to the background. Till next time, thanks so much for watching. Appreciate it. And please subscribe if you would.